Meh. Okay, so we're not killing
After
all
we
those soldiers.
Well, we defeated the barrel.
That's good enough, right?
Dungeon cleared.
So now we're just gonna keep wandering around in the desert for a bit.
Yeah. I just noticed that like the armor these lizard people are wearing, they're kind of like Tronish. Like those blue lines could, they look a bit like LEDs.
I can't say I've ever seen a lizard wearing LED armor before, I don't think.
I think I have, because in like Mass Effect 1, you can since it had an armor system, they can give Rex weird looking armor.
I wouldn't, strictly speaking, consider him to be a lizard.
Alright, well, reptile man.
I mean, there isn't really any evidence that Krogans are reptilian.
Well, they're more reptilian than any of their other races.
They're vaguely.
Krogans are reptilian.
They're
Solarians
vaguely
are
like
amphibious. Turians are birds. And Asari are squids.
Are they?
I don't know.
Asari are sexy space women.
Yeah, space babes. That's their like template.
I mean, pretty much.
Do you believe in that theory where it's like Asari appear different for each race? Like they always appear like your race, but kind of bluey.
I mean,
Because I don't.
there, again, isn't really any evidence in the games to support anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I only mention this because I don't believe that theory, but I know there have been discussions on that, and I'm like, why? Like, there's clearly nothing that indicates that.
I may have heard something like that once or twice before, but I don't.
It's definitely one of the prevailing fan theories that Mass Effect has had.
I mean, shout out to the weirdest time the BioWare forums ever got with talking about Tally's sweat, though.
I don't know about that. What?
Yeah, it's fairly infamous. I mean, like we've talked about it before in like the group chats and stuff. Like, I mean, maybe not with you directly or like with you there, but it has.
Well, I've never visited the BioWare forums, and now they're defunct. So like, it's completely gone past my time.
I mean, it's been brought up more than once because it's weird. Like, I'm pretty sure that the threads are still up. Like,
you can still access them.
I think so, at least. But yeah, it was just like this person put up a really like in-depth examination of what he thought like Tally's sweat would taste like. It was super weird, and I don't know how, like, how would you even begin to how would you begin to anything?
Has, like, put more thought into, I guess, the biology of these space races more than BioWare writers.
I mean, yeah, it's weird. It's like,
it reminds you of yeah, go on.
Oh, just not everything needs to be that in depth in.
Oh yeah,
game.
Exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like there are clearly, I mean, is an obvious thing, but there are clearly fans who care more about the lore of certain things than the creators of the lore.
Quote unquote lore.
Lore masters.
I'm not sure you can consider the sweat of an alien to be covered under the banner of lore.
Oh, what would you categorize it as?
Weird.
Weird.
Someone's creepy fetish.
Well, what if there was like some codex entry that explained about chlorine sweat?
They wouldn't do that. Like, that would be just super weird.
Well, what if that person designed the game? I think they'd put it in.
And it would be super weird.
But then it would also be lore. See?
It's like all of those really creepy, super sexist tabletop RPG systems. Like, ugh. Thankfully, I can't even remember the names of them at this point, but some of them are, ooh, there's some really good reviews online.
I agree.
But yeah, it's just, ugh. People are creeps.
Ew.
That's the long and short of it. People are creeps.
I don't know about that. Once you've been like desensitized to that sort of thing, just like just a thing.
No, I'm pretty desensitized towards most things, but like reading
I mean,
through.
like at this point, like nothing surprises me.
Well, it's not that it surprises me. It's that it's still just super fucking creepy that somebody, like, I honestly, like, I kind of want to remember what some of these RPGs that I'm thinking of are, but like, it's just super fucking creepy that someone could design an entire tabletop RPG system that's like hilariously over the top sexist, and they didn't think any of it was bad.
What did I miss in the 10 seconds that I was gone?
I can't remember what the name of like the most infamous one is.
Oh, you mean like an actual established tabletop RPG?
Yeah, I mean it's not like it's not big or anything. Like it's not a famous, it's not a famous game or anything. But it's
is the recent one.
No, the one that I'm thinking of in particular, got a lot of like obviously really poor reviews from people back in like the mid 2000s or something, I want to say. It's not recent at all. I think it might be called like Fatal or something. I don't remember, but yeah, it was just like super bad and super creepy and like
it had like, well, what was the sexist part about it?
Oh, just like everything. All of the rules of the game were inherently like, oh, men are so much better than women at everything, and women are only good for sex and reproduction and stuff like that. And it was just like,
Alright. This is a very weird rulebook.
Yeah, and someone literally wrote it out and got it like printed as an RPG rulebook and thought that it was okay. And
I'll stick to D&D, thank you.
Rightfully, they got lampooned for it. It's the things you can find on like deep dives into the internet are really weird sometimes. Games like D&D and Pathfinder are, much more famous for a reason.
I mean, yeah, they're more, a bit vanilla, but it gets the job done.
Like literally, the entire conceit of the game was like that it had all these weird rules for like weird sex and fetish stuff. Like it was super like in depth in the strangest ways, and like yeah, it was
very impressive.
no, well, for certain values of impressive, at least.
Just be thankful it never caught on.
Make a video game like that these days, and capital G gamers would probably get behind it, though.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that already exists. And it's just buried in the sea of indies. So, and it just didn't really caught anyone's attention.
In fairness, there is a lot of weird, creepy, sexist stuff on Steam now these days. So.
Oh yeah, you don't even need to try to look for those.
No, not even a little bit.
Just
God,
their discovery queue and get sad.
I look at the upcoming titles list every now and then, and like every time I find some new like just garbage looking game that I'm just like, why is this even here?
Well, it's because Valve are only gonna remove what were the two types of games that
they said they were gonna take out like games that were obvious trolling, which
whatever that means. And
yeah, what does that mean?
That was one of them, and then the other one was
I can't even remember anymore. Like that's how like completely useless their statement was about it.
I think the requirements were as long as it is a game that runs.
No, they don't care about that.
Well, I meant one of the things that they said that they cared about.
No, like they historically have allowed games that don't run onto Steam. Like more than once, they've sold games that just don't even download executable files.
Like, when you I know that. But I meant like recently there was like two requirements that it needed. One of them was not obvious trolling.
It was just their update to the
update to their policy,
the green light policy or whatever.
Which wasn't really much of an update. It was just the thing that they were already doing. They were just now they finally said, okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Steam, man.
It's yeah.
You used to be on such a high pedestal. Also, hey, you got a name of this obvious important character. Look at that. We're participating in the fight that's currently going on.
This doesn't look This looks like it could potentially be dangerous.
I don't know, which one do we fight?
Well, obviously you got to kill the mage first.
The one that the game allows us to fight.
Well.
In case it hasn't caught on, like the obvious derogatory term for humans here are pigs.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
Which is weird because I don't think actual pigs exist Or at least you haven't seen them. So I don't know where that came from.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe pigs went extinct. Also, it's weird how they're referencing a real animal when every single animal that we've seen so far is not real.
Yeah.
We've had real life equivalents like a bull or like a deer, but straight up saying, "Oh no, a pig." It's like, oh, yeah. I guess this has some relation to the real world, and that appears to be the only one.
Flying, fish.
There, yeah. we know what he's talking about.
Maybe it's just a consequence of them just using English.
Perhaps. And Nuo finally speaks up during a cutscene when he's like, "Oh, what airships? I know about those."
Airships.
That's my expertise, and the only thing I know about. If it's not about airships, I'm just not going to talk.
We just went backwards.
You know what? At this point, I don't think you should question what I'm doing in this game.
What are you doing in this game?
Just in case I missed anything, because I think at that point I was like, oh wait, progression. Whoops. I might have missed some stuff.
It turns out you did not.
No, there's an enemy.
You went outside of the place
Well, since aside from using like those totems that activates respawning for enemies, since there is a limited amount of enemies to fight, I'm kind of sort of more encouraged to deal with common enemies. If it's in the case of for most RPGs where
I just mean you were already on this world map. You didn't have to go back into the little tank thing.
No, the tank thing is like acting like a door. Like I have to go in the tank to get out from the other side.
But what?
You don't understand what I'm talking about?
It looked to me like there was plenty of room on the world map to just walk around it.
No, you have to go in the tank to progress. Yeah. Anyway, I came back here just to check. I was like, oh, is there any more enemies? Oh, there is. So I'm back here now. And as I was saying, like, there is, since there's I can feel a better sense of completion when I see a world map with no enemies on it. Just to fill certain, quote-unquote, OCD requirements when playing these types of games.
And yet you don't ever heal your characters.
That's not part of the OCD thing. That's part of your OCD thing. They're not part of mine. Unless health is like a direct has a direct influence on how attacks are performed, then as long as they're not KO'd, it doesn't really matter how much health they have. Like, am I wrong?
Yes.
I don't think so.
You were very wrong. What are all these markings? We can't check them, can we?
It's a made up language. Oh shit. Yeah, I might need to um, this doesn't concern me, but I think I might need to look at those words, because I have with me I don't think it's huge spoilers, but I have with me a translation of those letters, and I want to find out what they say.
So does the game provide you with a cipher at some point?
Yes. But for a separate thing, but it uses the same letters, and during this, I used the cipher thing in that scenario, but I didn't know that those letters came up earlier in the game. Now that I found out that is the case, I'm gonna go back and see what that says.
And then you're gonna promptly forget about it by the time you actually figured it out.
Well, now that you've said that, I'm gonna write a note on it right now. And also keeping track of when in the video it happens. It's probably not super important.
I mean, no.
Okay, so we're deep into the Ser territory, and no surprises that it's like a desert thingy.
Apparently, the soldiers still don't like us.
Nope. But these minor worker dudes, they're fine.
Yeah. They don't care. They're just workers.
Oh, they're slaves. Oh no. No, workers are slaves.
Well,
we gotta have at least one faction that has a slave trade. You gotta keep with the variety. I mean, what you're gonna not use slaves in your army?
I mean,
you gotta have at least one army that does that.
I'm not gonna use slaves.
When you write your novel,
I'm certainly not gonna do the David Cage thing. God. Fuck. Like, imagine if these lizard men, slaves, were being used as a direct parallel to slavery in the U.S. and, like, oh my God, how bad that would be.
Oh no. No, he said it himself. It's not supposed to be a real life equivalent. How much of the game story do you know about
Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit. Like, have you watched anything?
I've seen full playthrough of it.
All right.
It's
So
the writer of this game is a much better writer than David Cage.
And David Cage got help this time in Detroit, and also it is 100% true that this is David Cage's best game so far. He's
still credited as the primary writer and director.
That's true. Yeah, so I was gonna say, one of the positives I've heard about Detroit is that this is a game where your choices actually matter.
It's an interesting game. Like, it's just severely dragged down by the fact that David Cage doesn't know how to fucking write.
Sure, but excluding all that stuff, people who really like how things can branch off into different directions.
Yeah,
and can lead to a multitude of different endings that are vastly different.
Like, that's the reason that I'm interested in it.
Right. And however, a downside to that is you can get multiple failure states, and that would obviously, and since you have, you play as 3 different characters, so there are many ways you can screw up. And if you screw up in certain places, you're eventually gonna kill off characters that you might wanted to stay alive. And since after characters are killed off, you're gonna lead to endings that are very bad. And those bad endings kind of suck. And not suck as in, no, that was just a bad ending. Like, that was not fulfilling, and that was very underwhelming.
See, personally, I don't consider any of that to be a negative because of the simple fact that video games never fucking do that shit. Like,
that's true.
There's literally no other video game I can think of where you actually can lose one of your protagonists early in the game and the game just keeps going.
Oh, well, a game that I'm familiar with, game series that I'm familiar with, that does that is Zero Escape, because there's plenty of times where that happens.
That's a visual novel, though.
It still does a narrative thing where it's like, no, this path is clearly a screw up.
That's probably the only other franchise that I can consider that would do something like that, though, to be honest. Like, no other game is just like, oh yeah, your protagonist died? Oh well. The game's going on anyway. Like, if you don't want them to die, reload save or whatever.
The difference here is that with Zero Escape, it's like the playthrough. If you're trying to get a single ending, that's gonna take like a couple of hours. Second time through, it's probably gonna be a lot shorter than a couple of hours. But for Detroit, that's like you've invested, I don't know, like 10 hours, and then you got a bad ending. It's like, oh, okay, well, everything I worked for has been for nothing.
I mean, you can just replay the game.
That's true, but I don't know what how in depth you can like replay certain things, because with like Zero Escape, it's like down to the individual scenes.
You can just restart the game.
I know, but it's a 10-hour game, so it's like, how much time do you want to invest in getting a different ending?
Considering the length of games these days, I don't really consider that to be a huge time sink. Like, a 10-hour game is a pretty solid investment for me that, like, I can actually go back to. Whereas, like, some gigantic 80-hour RPGs, like, if I ever finish that game, I'm probably not gonna play it again because I don't have the time.
Well, at least for me, 10 hours is a bit much just for like alternate scenes. Like at that point, I'm just like, you know what? If I'm that interested, I'm just gonna watch it on YouTube.
That's also why that's partially why Detroit is actually interesting, because it's not just it's one different scene. It's like, no, the entire course of the storyline can change. And like the way that the scene, like the way that every scene like begins, and how like you interact with it and the things you can do within it are altered by the actions that you took earlier in the game. And like it's not, the entire storyline doesn't completely branch. Like, there are going to be sequences that are the same no matter what, but yeah, it's a difference in the way that people play games, really. And like, if you're the type of person who only plays a game once and isn't interested in exploring alternate paths or whatever, then yeah, a game like Detroit isn't going to be for you.
But as you said, it's like, yeah, if something is going to take 80 hours to finish, I'm definitely not going to do a second playthrough. Unless those 80 hours were like...
Honestly, like, these days I can barely get through games that long with... Whoa. I can barely get through games that long a first time, really. Just like, they just take too long.
I wonder if anyone, like, you know, how Deus Ex, Human Revolution had, quote unquote, 4 different endings. I wonder if someone actually played through the game 4 times just to see those 4 endings.
Probably not just to see the different endings, no.
Okay.
I mean,
But,
I can only speak from my personal experience, but I just had a save right at the end of the game that I reloaded to see the other endings.
Yeah, of course. That's the sane thing to do.
Like, I have played through the game multiple times, but
Well, yeah, so have I, but that was for the achievements.
yeah, not specifically to get the different endings. That's just weird.
I'm more inclined to replay entire games if I can do things differently gameplay wise, or some sort of achievement. I wouldn't. I'm less likely to play through an entire game multiple times just so I can get different like narrative stuff.
Yeah.
Unless those playthroughs are really short comparatively, like in Zero Escape.
Yeah, and I enjoy seeing the different narratives. So
All right.
that's the reason that I replay games like Mass Effect. It's definitely not because I love the stellar, amazing gameplay of Mass Effect.
Well, the first Mass Effect game to come out was kind of poo, but second onwards is decent.
Yeah, decent.
I had enough time as a child to play through Mass Effect multiple times, but now that's not the case.